What you and I are sharing is a spectacular bar chart that has an interesting backstory when you look at the bar chart as a whole. Now, what you're seeing here, especially in the control group, the one closest to me where you see butyrate, is the improvement in what's called the fatty liver index over an approximate time of about 12 weeks. And that's a pretty remarkable improvement. Now, for those not familiar with the FLI, I put a little definition down below to help basically enlighten you in regard to what that is. Now, the interesting backstory to this bar chart in this randomized double-blinded clinical trial is what they did in the beginning, the researchers, is they put them both on a Mediterranean diet. So that's why you see a little bit of improvement in the placebo, but nowhere near the improvement of the butyrate group. So once they had the diet normalized, they want to introduce a formula, a butyrate formula, containing zinc, vitamin D, and of course calcium butyrate. No particular formula or brand, it's just a combination that the researchers basically postulated may help. And look at the improvement. That is just incredibly promising. So without further ado, let's get right into the research as follows. And again, dwell on that. That's pretty amazing. Overall, like both groups are on the Mediterranean diet. And of course, look at the butyrate benefits. The effect of supplementation of a butyrate-based formula in individuals with liver steatosis and metabolic syndrome. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. Enrolled individuals were adhering to a standard Mediterranean, now if you look above, you'll see the I want to lead into the backstory. Diet, defined as a plant-rich diet with extra virgin olive oil as a main source of fats and low content of salt and animal fats. For 4 weeks, before randomization. The intervention period lasted 12 weeks. At each follow-up visit, individuals were evaluated for clinical status in the execution of the planned laboratory and analysis. Now a little bit to the backstory, so you get an idea why the researchers did what they did. The tested food for special medicinal purpose with the functional release contained calcium butyrate, 500 milligrams tablet, zinc gluconate at 5 milligrams in the tablet, and vitamin D3 at 500 IUs. In a calcium butyrate salt, the functional component is butyric acid, and the amount of calcium per serving was negligible. The butyrate-based formula was tested in an organoid model derived from human intestinal cells to evaluate the modulation of the inflammatory process. Following the induction of inflammation, remember this is a little bit of the backstory, this formula showed significant anti-inflammatory activity and greater effect on intestinal barrier integrity compared to a positive control of the butyrate alone. So the butyrate, okay, add a little bit of zinc, gluconate, and vitamin D, better. To proceed, and also to reiterate a little bit. After a 4-week run-in, the enrolled individuals were randomized to take a food for special medicinal purposes with functional release, i.e. the Mediterranean diet ahead of time. 1 tablet a day containing calcium butyrate, zinc gluconate, and vitamin D3. You see the dosages they utilized, 500 milligrams, 5 milligrams, and 500 IUs respectively. All right, going into more towards the conclusion, since it's pretty self-explanatory on its own. In, quote, our double-blind randomized clinical trial, we observed that 12-week dietary supplementation with a butyrate-based formula, the calcium butyrate, 500 milligrams, was able to significantly improve the fatty liver index versus the baseline and versus the placebo. Moreover, the TC, the TG, the TG triglyceride, total cholesterol, the GT, SHI, I'll show you the abbreviations in a few seconds, improved significantly versus baseline values, and the total cholesterol, and we'll just say the triglycerides improved versus the placebo group as well. It is notable that the fatty liver index remains almost unchanged during the pre-run with the Mediterranean diet. Unlike the lipid pattern suggesting mechanisms different from nutritional ones in the regulation of liver function. Overall, this study suggests that supplementation with butyrate-based formula is able to improve some of the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease-related parameters in individuals affected by liver steatosis and metabolic syndrome. Now, as promised, here is basically a breakdown of the abbreviations, courtesy the individuals who did the clinical trial. Conclusion. In this pilot randomized controlled study, quote, we observed that the butyrate-based formula improved FLI and plasma lipid patterns in individuals affected by liver steatosis and metabolic syndrome. Further research is needed to confirm these suggested findings, especially larger and longer-term studies involving individuals with more severe degree of disease. And of course, I wanted to spread this out a little bit so you could check for funding and conflict of interest as well, just to show you the researchers were pretty innocent, basically, in looking at this formula as a whole before they began the randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled clinical trial. So I want to bring up that one bar chart once again. And look at that. That is just astounding. Now, as further trials are done and larger trials, and this information is confirmed, that is going to yield such incredible benefit to many, many individuals that may be looking at the prospect of NAFLD and finding ways to mitigate it in a very simple yet helpful calcium butyrate type formula. Wouldn't it be so cool? Something so simple and so easy? Definitely benefit from many. Again, I am gratitude to the researchers. I am humble you watch. Look forward to see what you and I discover next week. Catch y'all next time. See you then. Bye.